The moment you stop waiting for angels and start really watching your own mind while you're washing the dishes is the moment God slips in wearing rubber gloves. You think God will come in robes and thunder, but instead it's the way your heart cracks open in a grocery store line when a child smiles at you like you're the whole universe. I spent years trying to climb some golden ladder to heaven, only to discover the divine had been quietly sitting in the subway seat next to me, reading yesterday's newspaper. The joke is that the personality keeps rehearsing how to be holy while the soul is already perfect and just waiting for you to get tired of your own performance. Every time you suffer, the mind says, "This should not be happening." And every time the heart whispers, "Look more closely, beloved. I am in this too." One day you notice that you're not the angry activist, the compassionate helper, the spiritual failure or success. You're the awareness watching all those roles parade across the stage. The guru doesn't hand you God like a diploma. The guru just keeps turning you back toward your own heart until you recognize it as the same heart that beats in everyone. When you act in the world without needing to win, without needing an enemy, service becomes this strange, sweet theater where God bumps into God and pretends it's an accident. Little by little, the boundaries blur. Your pain looks like my pain. Your joy lights up my chest. And what we used to call ordinary life starts to glow from the inside out. Finally, you stop trying to drag the divine into some perfect future, and you let yourself fall back into this breath, this body, this moment where God has been quietly waiting the whole time. You know, if you really watch, God is very sneaky. We have this idea that the divine is going to arrive with trumpets, with some kind of mystical drum roll, a big announcement. Now entering the presence. And so we sit in meditation and we squint our eyes and we tighten our jaw and we think, okay, any minute now, holiness is about to descend. And meanwhile, the place where the presence has already slipped in is the little itch on your nose, the hum of the refrigerator, the way you're impatient with the neighbor's dog barking again. We are so busy looking for God in the extraordinary that we keep stepping over God in the very ordinary. For a lot of years, I thought spiritual life was something you did somewhere else, some special room with incense, maybe a mountain, maybe an ashram in India. You sit up straight, be very serious, eat a little less, talk a little less, breathe a little softer, like you're on a date with God and you don't want to blow it. And then you come home and there are bills on the table and the sink is full of dishes and you think, well, this certainly can't be it. God wouldn't be caught dead here. But the divine is shameless. God will show up in the laundry basket. I remember once standing at a sink, doing dishes that had been in there much too long. They had become an ecosystem, and the mind was narrating, important spiritual teachers should not have to scrub hardened oatmeal. Important spiritual teachers should be out giving talks on consciousness. This is below my pay grade. And I watched that little drama, that righteous indignation, like a small child stamping his feet. And beneath it, just beneath it, was this very quiet, very simple sense. Warm water on my hands, the clink of plates, the glint of light on the soap bubbles. And something in me relaxed, just a little. I thought, oh, this too, this is part of the curriculum. The ego wants God to validate its specialness. The soul wants nothing. It just keeps resting as what is. If you really get interested, really curious, you start to notice that the ordinary moments are the ones where the veil is thinnest. You're in the grocery store, irritated that the line is moving so slowly, your mind constructing a whole legal case against the cashier. And then a little child in the cart ahead turns around and looks at you. And that gaze is so open, so unprotected that something in you stops. For a second, you're not the one who is late, not the one who is important, not the one who has somewhere else to be. You're just here, eye to eye with this being who has not yet fully bought into the game. And in that meeting, no trumpets, no angels, you feel the presence of something vast and tender peeking out through a peanut butter smeared face. God sneaks in like that. We talk a lot about identity in spiritual life, but it's very hard to see your own mask while you're busy performing the play. For years, my main identity was the one who is not yet quite good enough. Perhaps you know that role. The one who is always just shy of the mark, could have meditated longer, could have been kinder, could have eaten less, given more, kept quieter, spoken up. It's an exhausting part to play. I ran that role through psychology, through success, through failure, through relationships, through activism. Same script, different costumes. I should do more. I should know better. The irony, of course, is that when you're busy being the one who is not enough, you actually can't relax into the place in you that has never lacked anything. Identity is sticky. It says, I am the body, I am the story, I am the opinion, I am the one who is right, I am the one who is wrong. We get so hypnotized by our own self-portrait that we forget to check whether the mirror is even real. The shift begins so quietly. One day you catch yourself sinking into the usual drama. They are not appreciating me, they are misunderstanding me, they are abandoning me. And something in you very gently steps back. You hear the words in your head like a radio station playing in the next room. You can feel the emotion, the tightness in the chest, and yet there is also this broader space that is simply noticing. In that moment, you have moved from being the character to being the witness of the character. You have not yet become holy. You have just become honest. This witnessing is not cold. It's not like a scientist observing a lab rat. It's more like a loving grandparent watching a very dramatic toddler. Oh, look at you, little one, thoroughly convinced the world is ending because the cookie broke in half. There is no need to argue with the child. You just hold the space and the storm runs out of steam. The same with your mind. Oh, look at you, little mind, completely certain that your worth depends on this person's opinion, on this bank account, on this body holding together one more year. You watch it spin its stories, you feel the ache of believing them, and you just keep breathing, soft, gentle, allowing. Little by little, the identity loosens. You start to suspect that who you are is not exhausted by your latest narrative. That suspicion is the crack God slips through. We think spiritual awakening is going to be a grand revelation, but for many of us it begins as a kind of embarrassment. You suddenly see how hard you've been trying to arrange reality, how much you've rehearsed yourself like an actor who never leaves the stage. You see your spiritual persona, your politically conscious persona, your kind and loving persona, so many costumes. I remember being at a big rally once, marching against violence and destruction. The cause was noble, the stakes were high, and I was filled with righteous fire. We chanted, we held signs, we shouted slogans about love and justice, and somewhere in the middle of this sea of sincerity, I heard my own voice rise up just a little louder than the others. It wasn't for the cause. It was so I could hear myself being on the right side. There I was, fighting for peace while quietly feeding my ego on being the one who cares. When I noticed that, for a moment I winced. Oh no, even here, even in my most idealistic moments. But then something softer came, a kind of cosmic chuckle. Of course here. Where else would my ego show up if not at my best scenes? It likes good lighting. The paradox is that you can see all this and still keep marching. You can know that the actor is puffing himself up a bit and still play your part in the drama of relieving suffering. The difference is that you are no longer entirely fooled. You start to act not because you need to be the hero of the story, but because it is the natural movement of a heart that recognizes itself in everyone. You learn to act without an enemy. That is very delicate work. The world is full of real pain, real injustice, real cruelty. The temptation to create us and them is strong. It gives you energy, but it also locks the heart. The moment I turn another human being into the problem, I have forgotten who they really are. I have forgotten who I really am. So I began to experiment. At a protest, I would pick one face in the opposing line, some official, some policeman, and silently imagine their childhood. I would see a little boy being scolded for crying, a little girl told not to be weak. I would let my mind play with the countless ways a human heart gets armored. And as I did that, something strange would happen. I could still chant, still hold the sign, still oppose the policy, but there would be this quiet thread of tenderness running underneath. My brother, my sister, we are stuck in this together. May we both be free. That thread is God, sneaking into politics. In India, I once sat with an old teacher who had a way of turning my seriousness into a joke. I would come to him full of spiritual problems. I am too attached. I am too restless. I don't feel close to God. My meditation is shallow. My mind is noisy. I would lay it all out like a patient listing symptoms to a doctor, and he would look at me with these bright, amused eyes and say something that in translation essentially meant, yes, you are very complicated. And then he would hand me a piece of fruit. There was no lecture, no 10-point program, just this feeling: eat, rest, look. And as I sat there, sometimes sulking because I wanted more dramatic guidance, a fly would land on his nose. He would twitch, the fly would leave, and his face would return to stillness. No war against the fly, no grand pronouncement, just this deep ease, this incredible ordinariness that was somehow completely luminous. I began to understand that the guru is not primarily interested in building you a new, improved spiritual identity. The guru is in the demolition business. Gently, sometimes not so gently, they keep tugging at the loose threads of your self-image until the whole costume starts coming apart. They mirror your stuck places, your prettiest illusions, in such a way that you cannot quite keep believing them. They tease you, embarrass you, delight you, frustrate you, all in service of one thing: helping you relax into who you have always been. Sometimes the divine comes as a wise old teacher in a blanket. Sometimes it comes as your neighbor who plays loud music. Same school, different faculty. When suffering comes, and it does, it will, for all of us, the mind is very quick to hire a lawyer. This is unfair. This should not be happening. I did my affirmations. I drank the kale juice. I went on the retreat. So yearly I deserved a better plot twist than this. We carry around a secret contract with the universe. I will be good, and you will keep things comfortable. The trouble is, nobody else seems to have signed it. When a relationship crumbles, when the body fails, when someone you love disappears from the world, there is this ripping sound inside. The identity that depended on that person, that health, that stability suddenly has nothing to lean on. And in that moment, if we are willing, if we are very gentle with ourselves, a different kind of seeing can arise. At first it is just rawness. The heart feels like an open wound. You can hardly bear the sound of your own breathing. There is no sense in telling someone in that place it's all for the best. You don't throw philosophy at a broken heart. You sit with it. You hold your own face in your hands if you have to, and you just say, yes, my dear, it hurts, it hurts. That willingness to be with the pain without spinning a story around it is already grace. You sit and you feel the waves of grief come and go. You notice that they come in waves, that there are brief spaces between them where you simply are. For a few seconds, not happy, not unhappy, not anything in particular, just here. Those tiny spaces are doorways. Between the sobs, between the thoughts, there is this quiet, open knowing that is not broken, not overwhelmed. It holds the sorrow the way the ocean holds a storm. As you begin to trust that, the identity of the one who is devastated softens. You still cry, you still ache, but at the same time, you are also the witness in whose vastness all of this is unfolding. And from that place, something extraordinary can happen. You start to see that the very event that shattered you is also the event that opened you to a love you did not know you had. I have watched people whose hearts were smashed by loss become so tender that they could hold the pain of others like a fragile bird. They did not become that way in spite of their suffering, but through it. God is not cruel, but God is thorough. There is a mysterious alchemy in the way life uses our experiences to sand away the rough edges of the ego. The times when we are humiliated, when we fail publicly, when we feel like frauds, if we are paying attention, those moments are little blessings in disguise. The persona gets cracked and light leaks through. I once gave a talk where I had decided beforehand that I would be especially profound. I prepared carefully. I had all the right quotes, all the best stories. I walked onto the stage full of the subtle tension of wanting to impress. And about 10 minutes in, I realized, with a kind of sinking amusement, that I had lost the room completely. People were fidgeting, eyes glazed. One man in the front row had actually fallen asleep. There I was, delivering my very important message, and the universe was snoring in the front row. In that moment, I had a choice. I could push harder, try to rescue my image, or I could surrender. Something in me gave up. I stopped in the middle of a sentence and said, I seem to be trying very hard right now. The room got quiet. I said, part of me wants you to think I'm wise. Part of me is afraid you can see through that. And underneath all that, there is just this heart that wants to be with you exactly as we are. You could feel the collective exhale. We came back together, not in the glory of my teaching, but in the shared vulnerability of being human. That is the moment God loves best, when you drop the performance. The spiritual path, as it unfolds over years, is less about acquiring new experiences and more about becoming simpler. The mind collects mystical stories like souvenirs. I saw a light, I had a vision, I left my body. These can be beautiful, but they can also be distractions. Meanwhile, the real invitation is to be so fully present with each breath, each sound, each mundane sensation that the division between sacred and secular dissolves. You start to notice that brushing your teeth can be a prayer. Feeling the bristles, tasting the mint, watching the thoughts drift by as you stand in front of the mirror. There you are, a temporary bundle of habits, beliefs, memories, brushing the teeth of a creature that is aging, that will one day die. And instead of turning away, you smile at your own reflection. Ah, here you are again, old friend. Doing your little morning ritual on this spinning ball of dust in infinite space. There is tenderness in that, humor, a quiet awe. Awareness is like the sky. Your thoughts, feelings, roles, all of that is just weather. Sometimes bright and sunny, sometimes dark and stormy, but none of it touches the vastness in which it appears. You do not have to get rid of the weather to know the sky. You just have to stop taking each cloud so personally. As this insight deepens, your relationships change. You look at the person you used to call difficult, and you begin to see the patterns playing through them. You see their fear, their hope, their longing to be safe, to be loved. And because you have looked honestly at your own confusion, their confusion no longer seems so offensive. It just seems human. Compassion is not something you bolt on from the outside. It arises naturally when you recognize that every being is wrestling with the same illusion of separateness. One day, sitting on a bench, you notice an ant crawling over your shoe. And instead of absent-mindedly brushing it away, you watch it for a while. You imagine the scale of its world, its little antennae tasting the air. You feel, just for a second, the sheer improbability of this meeting between a human consciousness and an ant consciousness. And your chest gets a little wider. The boundaries of my life blur into something larger. You sense that the same mysterious intelligence that is beating your heart is guiding that ant's tiny feet. That sense of interconnectedness is not sentimental. It can be very sober. When you eat, you are consuming the lives of plants, of animals, of insects, of all the hands that brought the food to your plate. To live is to participate in a vast web of giving and taking. Once you feel that, you cannot help but approach life with more reverence. You say thank you more often, not as a dues, but as a spontaneous response to the immensity of what you are part of. Service, then, is not a moral obligation. It is just the natural expression of a heart that sees itself everywhere. You find yourself listening more deeply to others, not because you should, but because you are genuinely curious about how the one is playing as this particular person. You show up at a hospice or a school or a shelter, not to fix anyone, but to be available. You answer a phone call you used to avoid. You make a pot of soup. You hold a hand. These small gestures, unnoticed by the world, are God's favorite hiding places. In time, the question, how can I find God, quietly flips over into, how can I stop ignoring God? You walk through your day as if everything is a message. Not in a paranoid way, not reading hidden codes into every billboard, but with a gentle alertness. The song on the radio, the timing of a red light, the stranger who asks for directions, all of it is part of a conversation. You do not always understand the meaning, but you feel the intimacy of being addressed. The divine is very patient. It will keep tapping you on the shoulder in 1,000 ordinary ways. The sensation of your feet on the ground, the warmth of a cup in your hands, the way the wind moves through a tree. The more you attend, the more you realize that you have never been walking alone, not for one breath. You go nowhere and arrive fully. In the quiet of the evening, when the day's roles have mostly been played, you might sit for a few minutes, eyes half closed, and simply notice the body breathing, the sounds in the room, the thoughts slowing down like a river after rain. You do not have to manufacture holiness. You do not have to be anyone in particular. You let the masks slip to the floor one by one until there is just this, a field of awareness, vast and still, in which the sensations of your life rise and fall like waves. In that stillness, if you listen closely, you may sense a kind of silent love. It does not judge, it does not push or pull. It is just there, holding you from the inside. It has been there in every moment you thought you were alone. It was there when you were triumphant, when you were ashamed, when you were kind, when you were unkind. It is there now in the simple act of hearing these words. This love is what we really are. We spend years, lifetimes, running around the world trying to earn what we already are. We seek approval, achievements, insights, experiences, thinking they will finally make us whole. And then, perhaps on an ordinary Tuesday, sitting on the edge of your bed, you simply give up. You stop bargaining. You stop trying to get somewhere else. You feel the weight of your own body, the rise and fall of your breath, and you whisper, "All right, I am here, just as I am." And in that surrender, you may feel it. The gentle embrace of a presence that has been waiting, not impatiently, but with endless patience. God sneaks in through ordinary moments because there is nowhere else to enter. Every place you imagine is unworthy. Every messy kitchen, every anxious thought, every lonely night is a doorway. Every role you play, teacher, student, activist, lover, parent, child, failure, success, is a costume worn by the same invisible actor. And behind all of it, beneath all of it, surrounding all of it, is this boundless, shining awareness, always whispering the same simple invitation. Be here, beloved. Just be here now. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Feel the breath moving in, moving out. Hear the sounds around you. Notice the thoughts floating by. Let them be. Let yourself be. Nothing to push away, nothing to grab. This moment is enough. You are enough. You have always been carried. Rest for a little while in that knowing.